Welcome to today's session on the day of International Menopause Day, a day that isn't normally associated with celebration, but it is something that we need to, as women, not only celebrate the existence of, because it's a new chapter in our life, it's also an opportunity for us to really get on top of some of our health challenges as we progress through these transitions. And some of the topics that we'll talk about today isn't just pertinent for women who are at that age, it's also pertinent for women who are even younger. And I'll talk to you about why that is the case in a few minutes. So I'm going to do share screen again. Hopefully you can give me a thumbs up that you can see this. As I can see now that we got, thank you for the thumbs up. I'll do a bit of an introduction. Welcome, Ramya. Hope you're well. Just doing the introduction, we're going straight into it. As we run these sessions, for those who haven't been here before, the way we run these sessions is that they're very interactive. So I'll be sharing some information, some topics, and I would really welcome your input. I will be asking questions and hoping, fingers crossed, that you'll be able to give me your views on those challenges. But also, if you have any questions, please throw them as I speak. Don't wait for the end. I'm more all about engagement and interaction. So where are we today? It's World Menopause Day. And the theme of the International Menopause Society is menopause and cardiovascular disease. And we are focusing on what every woman needs to know. There are specific links that actually have been made between menopause and cardiovascular disease that we all need to be aware of, which is the topic of today. For those who don't know me, my name is Christina Ioannidis. I'm an international motivational speaker, consultant, author, and now turned health coach as well. I work a lot with companies on human capital management, transformational leadership, customer experience, inclusion and diversity, and performance management. Some of you know me from many, many years, and they know that I have written a book called Your Loss: How to Win Back Your Female Talent, which is all about why corporations are seeing a brain drain, particularly of women at at the ages of 35 plus, which I'll refer to in a few moments. I am also the author of Reboot, Rebuild, Reconquer, Thriving with Uncertainty, a toolkit for creating a transformational mindset in the post-COVID-19 era. I've also been very delighted to receive awards from the International Alliance for Women, the 100 World of Difference Award on for the supporting the economic empowerment of women. And I've also been recognized as a leader for women in business in the UK. So it's all accolades. I don't want to brag too much, but hey, I believe every woman should be talking about their achievements. So there we go. I walk the talk. Now, talking of walking the talk, this is me. Some of you may remember me at this age. In March 2014, this is me on the left-hand side, of your screens, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I had just turned 40, so I was 41. Now I'm giving away my age. You can do the math. No issue with sharing my age. And as I went through the fifth decade of my life, something happened, and I ended up, as I look on the right-hand side of your screens, in February 2020, just before COVID-19 hit. And this lady on your right-hand side, I'm not referring to the hair because the hair is fabulous. I love it. And I'd love to see Cynthia's let her go natural. I'm all for being a platinum goddess. The challenge that I have lived through is actually everything else that you see in that picture that you may not appreciate because it's not quite evident. I was depressive, suffering with anxiety. I had terrible sleepless nights. And the weight gain, I hope it can be quite obvious. In fact, when my other half took this picture, I remember saying to him, destroy it, delete it. I don't want people seeing this. Now it's actually my go-to poster because one of the reasons why I do what I do today and talking about performance management and women is because this is the new me. You see me, this is Christina, the new Christina. having lost a lot of the weight and having really taken control of her body. Now you'll say, what is it that you did, Christina? Part of the conversation today is I was perimenopausal, that phase that women go through before they go through menopause. I have yet to go through menopause, but my hormones were a mess. I was actually a mess. So I am showing you here all my vital statistics in 2016 and how they changed in 2022. Oh, not because, again, I want to brag. I want to actually demonstrate that it's possible to make change when you believe that your body may be fighting you. And so this is what I'm all about. I'm a proponent for women to really get on top and get control of their own bodies as they go through what may seem to be complete mysteries. Why am I not sleeping at night? Why am I putting on this weight? Why do I feel so much anxiety and stress? Why am I depressed? You know, all the stuff that we don't necessarily associate with going through hormonal transitions. So when I wrote my book, the book that I referred to in the early 2010s, so this book was actually launched in February 2010 with my co-author Nicola Walter. We, as professional women who then turned into entrepreneurship, we were surprised to see that even though we were both working in organizations where men and women, and on the right-hand side, you see the kind of the hierarchy, the male hierarchy in business. On the left-hand side, what you see here is the what tends to happen is women get to kind of the middle level of management and they start falling off the career path. I, at that point, when we wrote this book, had never considered the impact of health. I had never considered what may be impacting some women, which increasingly now through the open conversations that we're having through about perimenopause and menopause, we're seeing that women are actually taking time out of their professional careers because of health issues and performance issues. So I bring this up because 10 years ago, actually now 13 years ago, when this book came out, it was something that we were completely blind to. Now, thankfully, we're much more open to this. And what I am going to share with you are some stats from the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development in the UK, that 59% of working women between the ages of 45 and 55 who are experiencing menopause symptoms state that it impacts them negatively at work. And this is from research, by the way. This isn't Christina saying it. This isn't just the CIPD making it up. This is research that's been published. Nearly 2/3, 65%, said that they were less able to concentrate. More than half, 58%, said they experienced more stress. And more than half felt that they were less patient with clients and colleagues. So what I talk to you as my perimenopausal symptoms of anxiety, of depression, unable to really function, were very typical of what goes on with women in perimenopause as well as menopause. So I know we're talking today a lot in the context of the International Menopause Society, you know, the World Menopause Day, but I really hope that you might take away some of these, some of this conversation is also relevant for women who are before menopause. And one of the things that we're seeing, and I'll talk about that in a few moments, is actually the increased incidence of menopause or perimenopause for younger women. So women who may be way before 40, but I'll talk about that in a few moments. What's today's agenda? We're going to talk about why cardiovascular disease increases in perimenopause and menopause. Some of the telltale signs. I will shorten cardiovascular disease to CVD only because it's easier to say. And then finally, we'll end up with all the strategies that we should proactively implement to limit our risk. I'm all for proactivity. This is not something to say, hey, just be aware and do nothing about it. This is, let's watch our bodies. Let's see what our bodies are telling us. And let's get on top of some of the key metrics that I'll talk about in a few moments and talk to our physicians if we're seeing things happen. So please bear in mind, this is all about encouraging proactivity. So what's cardiovascular disease or CVD? So cardiovascular disease it covers a whole range of ailments that impact the heart and your system or veins and arteries. That's why it's cardiovascular. So you have three main areas, which you have. The first one is coronary artery disease, which is where you get blockages in the arteries, where you don't actually get blood being brought to the heart. So this prevents the heart from being nourished, and as well, you also are unable to function well. So symptoms include chest pain, shortness of breath, and this can lead to a heart attack or what's called angina. Then you have what's called congestive heart failure, and this is where the heart doesn't pump efficiently. And this is very, by the way, common for women, increasingly more common in women. And so what happens when the heart can't pump? It collects the liquid, whether it's blood or other fluids, collect in the lungs and legs. In fact, I recently had my aunt go through this at quite an extraordinary amount. She had put on 7 kilos of liquid retention, and her legs were horribly inflamed. And so this is something to be very much aware of, because it's a telltale sign. When you see our lungs, or we can't see our lungs, but when you see our legs retaining water, there's something that may be really seriously affecting our heart. And it's often caused by coronary artery disease that we talked about earlier, when you have blockages in the arteries. Also high blood pressure or diabetes, which I'm going to talk to you in a few moments about. And the symptoms here are fatigue, shortness of breath, and swelling of the feet and the legs. Those are the two main ones. You also have, when I go to the next slide, there we go. You also have the incidence for research. This is very new research, ladies. There's a link now with reproductive factors in cardiovascular disease. So there's now a link between reproductive issues and CVD, where what your menstruation may be like, if you had pregnancy complications, if you had breast cancer treatments, and menopause or even perimenopause, those can affect the chances of increasing CVD. So with relation to menstruation, if you have cycles that are irregular or even absent, or you've had any incidents, and I know Dr. Flood, who's been here, knows very personally very much about this as well. If you've had any incidents of an early menopause, or you have what's known polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is PCOS, then that increases the risk of cardiovascular disease. So that's one thing to remember. The second, if you've had children, then you've had complications during pregnancy and during delivery or soon after delivery, including things like high blood pressure, and also there's incidence of diabetes, you can increase the chances of getting heart disease. So this is something. So reproductive factors and the cardiovascular issues that we talked about earlier increase the incidence of cardiovascular disease for women, and women have a higher chance than men in getting cardiovascular issues, which is why we're discussing it today. And most women tend to, as I said, leave it, not even think about it, and actually, it's far too late when we get to the point of being able to recognize what the symptoms are. We really need to take a preventative approach. So what do we need to be aware of? Menopause. Now, menopause, the fact that it may happen early, so below the age of 45, or really prematurely below the age of 40, can speed up the development of cardiovascular disease. So if you know anyone or any of your friends tell you, and they're 45 or 40 or below, which is increasing, by the way, due to toxic environments, toxicity, stress levels that we all have, and that are the younger generation as well, going through extraordinary levels of stresses, we're seeing that there is an incidence of menopause even in mid-20s. So that can increase the development of cardiovascular disease. Even if you're a normal woman like me, even if you're at the normal age where the average is 51, you could still get a heightened risk of developing this disease if you don't actually take precautions. One of the recommendations made by the International Menopause Society is to seriously consider the use of hormone replacement therapy. to talk to your physicians. And again, this is, by the way, I'm not telling you what to do. This is my disclaimer. This is not telling you what to do. This is speak to your physician and your gynecologist, only because the fact that you may be going through hormonal imbalances, and I'll talk about some of the hormonal imbalances I went through and some of my clients go through, then that if you do take HRT, that can help reduce the risk of heart disease. So that's one of the reasons why we're talking about it today, CVD as a result of menopause or even perimenopause. So that's the premise today is talk to your doctor. There's 3 key areas we need to be aware of. There's blood pressure, blood sugar, and blood cholesterol. I'm not going to spend too much time on blood pressure because most of us go to the doctor and we have our blood pressure checked on, I presume, quite often. Hopefully we all do. If we don't, we should. And try and keep it as low as normal as possible. What is the most I would call them the most untalked about areas are blood sugar and blood cholesterol. Those are the 2 areas that I think we need to really be on top of. Why do I say this? Is because they're measurable, but a lot of doctors don't really look into this. So I know that with my personal internal doctor, I have to ask him specifically for these exams relating to my sugar levels. Cholesterol, thankfully, my gynecologist, measures. But again, it's hit and miss. So we need to be aware of what are our readings when it comes to blood pressure, blood sugar, and cholesterol. Why do I say they're important? And here I'm not going to give you a biology lesson, but I am going to give you 3, at least 2 key things to remember. Most of us, and this is a question to all of you, most of us are aware of our key hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, correct? Yes, I see everyone nodding. Okay, so for those who have the camera on, I can see you nodding. So one of the things I didn't know, and I thought myself as someone who was well-educated and learned, is that actually, whilst those are sex hormones, these hormones are regulated or can be regulated by another 3 hormones, and that's cortisol, oxytocin, and insulin. Now, remember when I talked to you earlier, I said keep on top of your blood sugar. That's insulin. This is how much sugar you have in your body at any one time. And so what tends to happen to us as we progress and we become naturally more mature and have platinum hair like I do, and Cynthia does, is we become what's called insulin resistant. This is what I was, by the way. And I know because I had a very clear telltale sign that I'll talk about in a few moments. But what's insulin resistance? It means you have too much blood sugars or insulin, the hormone insulin, that is being secreted by your body. That normally, under normal circumstances, insulin helps you take what you consume and the sugars, you could convert it into sugar, and then that normally gets pushed into your beautiful cells to then use it as energy, right? That's when you have normal amounts of insulin. But if you secrete too much, and I'll talk about what makes you secrete too much insulin in a moment, that's when your body says, oh, I've got too much blood sugars lying about. I can't, no, my cells can't absorb anymore. Hey, I'll take this, the blood sugars that I've got, and I'm going to stick them around your waistline. I'm going to stick it in parts of your body that you do not want to grow any further, right? That's how the body responds to too much insulin. And this is something that happens to us when 2 things. Number 1, we have too much cortisol. So this is the other, on the top left, you see the other hormone, which is the fight or flight hormone. That's a stress hormone. We need it because we need to be able to, if we're under threat, to be able to run, right? This is why our body secretes cortisol. The problem is, especially for us women, is because we become, we're under immense stress. We actually absorb stress in a different way to men. Our cortisol levels tend to become chronically elevated. which if they become chronically elevated and we don't just go back to normal, but we're constantly at a level where we have too much cortisol, that also means that our blood sugars remain high because we also secrete too much insulin. So that's something that is completely, for me, I think it's been a mystery, and it's been an enlightened moment for me of learning to say, oh, I now need to, in order for me to be able to lose weight and to get on top of my insulin, I also need to reduce my cortisol. So when people say to you, relax, don't get stressed, this is what they mean. They don't just say go off and do yoga, which is what I thought they meant, right? I thought you need just to do a little bit of meditation and that's it. No, you need to consciously be aware of why you're doing it. This is why I'm explaining it to you. You're doing it because you want to reduce cortisol, because that reduces your blood sugars. And that then allows for you to actually be able to secrete your normal hormones correctly. And as we go through perimenopause and then ultimately to menopause, we increasingly have our ovaries increasingly find it difficult to produce hormones, which is why we need to have a body that is much more, if you like, balanced, which sounds like a weird, holistic type, what's it called, psychedelic flower power type of word, but it is the case that we need to reduce that cortisol, to reduce the insulin. Now there's another hormone that I haven't referred to, which is oxytocin, which is the one on the right hand side of your screen. That is, for me, my other big learning. What happens when we have a good level of oxytocin? Oxytocin is that hormone that is secreted for anyone who's had children, when a mother gives birth to her children. It's that bonding hormone. It's what allows the woman to take the baby in her arms and then just, cuddle them, right? The same hormone is secreted when we laugh, when we dance, when we socialize. Especially for women, socialization is key. When we're with our tribe of women, this is what happens. And I say of women because men have a slightly different response to the whole bonding piece, which I won't go there right now. So what oxytocin does is it helps also in the hormone production of estrogen and progesterone. The hormone that we have the greatest difficulty for most women is progesterone. Progesterone is the hormone that requires you to be very calm, to be very relaxed for it to be produced by the body. So for chronically stressed, what we're seeing globally is there's a higher incidence of what's called estrogen dominance, where women like me, or someone who I thought was super healthy, I would go to the gym twice a day. I was pumping iron, going crazy. I was very unhealthy because I had too much estrogen, because I wasn't doing enough of the oxytocin boosting stuff, and I was doing too much of the cardio, which was increasing my cortisol, and it made my insulin levels very high. So the reason why I'm giving you this kind of hormonal view is because it helps unravel, and there's loads of books that I can refer you to for you to be able to dig deeper into this, or I'll come and speak in your companies or whatever it is that you want, or talk to me direct. Is what I think is the ultimate learning for women in handling how to lower the risk of including things like cardiovascular disease. And I go back to cardiovascular disease to remind you that blood sugars, cholesterol, which by the way is all the lipids you have, are integrity linked to your levels of insulin and cortisol. Okay. So hopefully this biology lesson was of use to kind of explain to you how this all works from a hormonal perspective. Now you're going to say to me, Christina, what are the things I can do? I normally talk about the 7 realms of transition in my health coaching clients or corporates, and we talk about hormonal, physical, mental, social, and emotional, environmental, and metabolic. But instead of going through all of these 7, I'm going to focus on the core ones specifically relating to cardiovascular disease. And the first thing that we need to do is to exercise, and it's to move. move our bodies. The reason why we need to move our bodies is twofold, and I'll go into the strength training in a few moments. When we actually move, we create nitric oxide. Nitric oxide sits on the inside of our arteries. There's a layer called the epithelium. Sorry if I'm saying too many long sounding Greek words, but there's a layer of cells inside our actual arteries and veins that is responsible for unleashing something called nitric oxide. That is basically our body's natural pharmacy. When we move, our body secretes that naturally. So it's actually one of the reasons why exercise is good for us. Apart from the fact that we're going to breathe better, it's going to be good for our lungs, etc. It's that release of nitric oxide that helps, particularly with a cardiovascular angle. Then exercise, strength training. When we are aging, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to use the aging word, or as we're maturing as women, we lose what's called body mass. Okay, now you wish we lost fat, but actually we lose muscle. Unfortunately, it's the other way around. So this is why we need strength training, because it maintains that lean body mass. The other thing, of course, to do, and you're going to tell me this is obvious, Christina, and you're going to tell me I need to diet, I need to lose a little bit of weight. Yeah, honeys, I'm really sorry. It is really important. Why? Calorie restriction is fundamental because it helps us as well to reduce our blood sugars. And I'm going to link this as well to mixing it up, which is the last point. And I'm going to talk about intermittent fasting in a few moments. But finding ways to reduce our calories so we're in a bit of a deficit can help us lose weight. Just having a 500 to a 700 calorie deficit a week can help us lose up to half a kilo. So the next thing, eat natural foods. And here, the reason why I talk about natural foods is because there's a lot of people who say, oh, I look after myself, but then, off we go and have maybe a sandwich at our local, at a local bakery. As much as I'm not knocking sandwiches, things that you don't make at home that are not wholesome, that are not, for example, salads, you'll say, oh, Christina, you're so boring. But things that you can make at home are much healthier because you know what you're putting in there. Even if you buy, and I'm going to give you an example. I was buying kefir. I was in Spain last week, and I was buying kefir. Kefir is that natural yogurt-like drink that is very good for full of probiotics. And I picked up 2 different kefirs. Both of them said kefir on them. One of them, however, had 15 different ingredients. The other one had 3. Which one did you think I bought? The 3. So the more natural, the less added ingredients. That's what I mean when we say eat natural, need natural foods, and avoid having anything that is full of trans fats or anything that's store bought, because that can lead to stuff in your that you're consuming without even knowing that's bad for you. Then I'm sorry for those who drink. I'm sorry it's culturally inappropriate for those who are dialing in from any Muslim countries. Alcohol. Alcohol is a definite no. The only one that may be associated with health benefits is red wine. But the challenge that we have as women, and I'm sorry to say this because those who know me, I like my tipple, is that alcohol is, when you consume alcohol, your liver has to make a choice to whether burn the alcohol first or the fat. And guess what it chooses? It chooses to burn the alcohol. So you then pile on the weight, thinking, oh, I'm okay, I'll have a little glass of wine. Because your body then says, no, I'll deal with the alcohol, but I'm going to hold on to all the other stuff you've eaten, and I'm going to pile it around your waist. Right? Monitoring food intake. That's a bit of an obvious one for those who are a little bit more on the how do I say this? On the structured side, which is monitor what you eat and avoid all the unhealthy stuff. Now, I'm going to refer to intermittent fasting. And this has been, if you were to ask me what's been the biggest learning in the last few years of your transformation, Christina. It's the power of intermittent fasting. Some religions have this, particularly the Muslim religion and Islam, they have this every year, once a year for the whole month, Ramadan, we fast from sunset to sunrise, from sunrise to sunset. Okay, it's fantastic. However, what we need to be aware of is how we do it. And there is the averages, and most people are aware of what it is. Intermittent fasting is when you choose to eat your food at a certain time window, and the rest of the time you are not consuming foods. So some people say, okay, I'm going to do 16 hours of food, of not consuming food, and then 8 hours where I may eat all my food, right? So 16, that's considered the 16-8 protocol. I did 24. This has been what works for me. 20 hours of not consuming food, 4 hours of consuming food. It doesn't matter what it is, what you land on, but the New England Journal of Medicine has shown that when you do intermittent fasting, you lower the incidence of disease, cancer, and obesity. Again, the reason why, and there's a gentleman from Japan who actually got the Nobel Prize because he discovered that when you fast, especially around 17 hours, your body does something called autophagy. I know, another Greek word. It essentially means where your body, you eat yourself. So it's a detoxification of the body. And that is one of the reasons why this works so well. It allows our cells to clean up. And when we do that, it also allows us to get rid of a lot of the excess insulin that's been built up in the blood sugars and the blood sugars as well. I hope this makes sense, because this is one of the biggest, one of the best and easiest and cheapest tools in our toolbox, which is not eat. Consume water for those who are not of the Muslim religion, obviously, and you're not fasting for Ramadan. Consume coffee or tea, as long as you don't consume anything that's got sugars in it. So if you're going to drink coffee, avoid having sugar, obviously, in it, or milk, that kind of thing. So as long as you keep your liquids to a level of low sugar or no sugar at all, then you're not what's called breaking your fast. And so that helps with reducing the incidence of disease, cancer, obesity, and cardiovascular disease. You may say, I need to try different types. Absolutely. Not one type will work for everyone. So this is why it's actually, some people call it time-restricted eating, some people call it intermittent fasting, whatever you call it, whatever protocol works for you, try it. And if it doesn't, try another one. So if 16-8 doesn't work for you, maybe 24. Works for you. If that doesn't work for you, maybe you need to do 24 hours. I've done 24 and 36. I've not been crazy enough to do a 3-day or 7-day fast. I haven't gone there yet, but hey, I may have to get to if I see that my body is plateauing and I'm not shifting my metrics positively. So I hope that also kind of helps you out there. Now, when we're talking about managing cardiovascular disease, one of the things I talk about is that transformational mindset. And so what we need to do consciously is to monitor our food, be aware of what we eat. Is our food going to serve us? I think that's a fundamental question we're going to ask ourselves. I had a bag of crisps when I was in Spain last week. I regretted it immensely. My body went on a strike afterwards. The bag of crisps did not serve me, and I live to regret that moment. So your body is going to tell you when you're going to eat something that is not good for you. So monitor what you eat, and your body will reward you. Reduce stress levels, and I know that sounds like a stereotypical advice, but you now understand why you're doing it. Cortisol needs to be counterbalanced by oxytocin. The next thing you need to do, or we all need to do, is prioritize sleep. Women are the most sleep deprived of the two genders, not only because when we become perimenopausal, it's one of the symptoms. It's also because we tend to take on everybody else's stresses on. And so we spend the middle of the night thinking about, oh, my mother, my father, my daughter, my son, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my dog, my cat, and we don't end up sleeping. And so we need to actually create a ritual. I have a whole ritual in terms of sleeping. I do not listen to news. I am not interested in any wars. Pardon me for when at the time of that we are in, that the war, there is a war, there's many wars going on. I refuse to do anything else other than watch comedy. Why? Because I go to sleep with a smile on my face, and that helps me calm down. And remember, oxytocin, that helps me lower cortisol, increase oxytocin. And you might say, Christina, that's such a weird ritual. Yeah, but it works for me because I sleep like a baby, whereas 4 years ago, when you saw that picture, I had real issues with being able to sleep. And then get a buddy. I mean, Cynthia, who's here, Fatma, who's been on these before, and Dr. Klude, who've been before, they know that one of the things I'm keen on is every woman should have a buddy to build their motivation when it comes to maintaining their peak performance. We get more, and this also helps with our oxytocin. We get more when we do, and we set goals that we can make other people accountable for too, and we work in pairs. So that will help build your motivation. And then build your A team. There is no point in talking about there's no point in talking about, what are we talking about? Christina, see, I'm getting a brain drain now. I forgot the word. Menopause, thank you. It must be a menopause symptom. There's no point talking about menopause if we're not going to get our A team. Our A team is a health coach, our personal trainer, our doctor, gynecologist, and endocrinologist. For those who don't know, an endocrinologist is the person who looks after your hormones, the endocrine system. So if you already do that, tick. A lot of women don't have that A team. They don't have what I would call kind of the 4-star approach to making sure that they have everyone that can help them. That's key. You can't have just a gynecologist. You need an endocrinologist as well. Unless you have, like I'm blessed now to have a gynecologist that is very much au fait when it comes to holistic management of women's health. So that's the summary of the strategies to do and to put in place. This is a quote from Professor Cynthia Stunkel, who works with the International Menopause Society. And she says, and I love to quote this, cardiovascular risk represents a lifetime of choices and experiences, but menopause offers the opportunity of a single point in time to step back, take stock, and do all you can toward promoting future cardiovascular health for the rest of your life. And this is why we're here. This is why we're having this conversation. This is why I welcome your questions on what we can do and what you can put in place in order to make sure that you're reducing your risks. And I've got, for those of you who have attended these calls before, I've got a whole bunch of on-demand learning, and we've got the Reboot, Rebuild, Reconquer, midlife transformation as well, activities that you can be part of. But let's go back to the topic, and then any questions you may have. And I'll do stop share. Any questions? No questions? Was it all blatantly clear? No questions relating to anything that you may have had any concerns about, maybe? Any thoughts?
Christina, I am processing right now. I really appreciate the 2 triangles around the 6 hormones. Like I've never heard that before. And so I really appreciate you're explaining how they interact with each other and what I can do in my lifestyle to help alleviate some of those pressures. Yeah. So, wow, I'm thinking right now.
Thank you, Cynthia. And this was my biggest learning. It's called a hormonal hierarchy. And I've only come across 3 very enlightened female doctors and practitioners who talk about it. And so for me, this has been a game changer. So thank you for appreciating that.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I'm so grateful that we can talk about it, but there's so much we don't know still. And
There
like
is.
here I am in the midst of it, and I know so little. And thank you for what you've taught me so far. But gosh, yeah, we've got to do better for women's health. So thank you for this. Yeah.
Well, you leave that to me. And if you work for a company, that's one of the things I'd encourage you, Cynthia and Cecile and Ramia and Fatima, all of you you're working women, you're successful. Take this information into where you work, especially I know Cynthia, you're in the school environment. Young girls need to be just as aware as older women. So the reason why I say this is because when I was much younger, I had no idea when people were talking to me about progesterone and estrogen. I was like, yeah, whatever. I completely blanked it. Whereas now we're seeing young girls are getting menopausal symptoms. They're getting the menopause because of their extreme amount of stress, bullying, toxic environments that their bodies are going through. So they need to be just as aware as we older, more mature ladies. So I encourage you, take the message into wherever your organization is. I'm more than happy to kind of make all the stuff available on demand, but as well as also, speak to them directly. It's very important that women advocate for other women as well.
No, thanks, Christina. No, you're right. And I think it's actually, it's a great topic. I'm just getting into it for myself. I'm on the pre-side, so I'm starting. It's true with regard to the organization, the well-being is really now on the agenda. So I think it's, sorry, I had a cold, so my voice is weak. So I think it's a great topic for you, Christina, to also push towards that, because, now it's actually, they're starting looking to our well-being, which is nice. So on that, and then on the cortisol, it was interesting because we will have to catch up. But I had a really big accident, so I'm not working yet. But I checked also my cortisol level because I wanted to also understand. I'm on kind of back to, let's say, this hormone you mentioned. That's the cortisol, fight and flight. And so I'm currently, I had a collapse, and I don't know if it's part of anything with regard to, no one knows what happened to me, if it's a stress level or whatever. And luckily, everything is getting towards this path, but I fractured my scalp and had a traumatisme crânien, coronal traumatism. Ouais. And so now I'm going through, and it's interesting because I'm back to kind of prehistorical time on flight. My body is always alert, and everything is stress, noise, light, everything. And so with my traumatism, the brain injury a bit. And so I check my cortisol, and in case you can do that, ladies, I think it's very interesting. But the cortisol level, apparently, the doctor mentioned to me, and we could dig into that. It's a very complex hormone to check. It needs quite a lot to dig in. If you just look for cortisol, you might not even get the right number or the right level. You really have to drill into it. And I thought it was interesting because I didn't think it was so complex hormone.
It is. Yeah. And cortisol changes during the day. So in the morning it spikes, then it drops, and then it spikes again in the afternoon. So cortisol is very linked to our circadian rhythm. So in the morning, this is one of the reasons why so the circadian rhythm is our rhythm that we function in. Sorry, I assume everyone knows, and I have to correct myself. It's the rhythm by which we function. So in the morning, cortisol helps us wake up. This is one of the reasons why when we wake up, we should really look at sunlight, because that helps us spike the cortisol. We need it to wake up. So it spikes and then it drops. And unfortunately, if we're highly stressed, then it stays up. And that's the reason why we need to kind of find ways to lower it. Now, trauma, it's interesting you talk about trauma. With my mother's bereavement 3 years ago, I was in a terrible crisis mode myself, and I had everything happen to my body that you could possibly happen. And that was because my body, like you're saying, was in that fight or flight, constantly inflamed, You're constantly retained, your insulin levels are high, everything is high. All your readings are off the charts. So trauma is and there's a great book which is called Your Body Keeps Score. Your body retains that memory of that trauma, whatever that might be, whether it's a bereavement, whether it's post-traumatic stress disorder. And so that's why we naturally create and stay in that high cortisol phase. And so you're absolutely right. You do need to manage it, and you have to find what works for you. And isolation probably doesn't help you. I mean, for those of us all of us were during COVID isolated, we were depressed because we're not socializing, we're not bonding with other people. And that's one of the reasons why mental health issues really went through the roof as well. And you said something really interesting about wellness. And this is my bugbear. For those who know me, maybe I've said it before, but women are twice as likely as men to be put on antidepressants. Why? We have hormonal challenges. We don't need antidepressants. We need hormonal rebalancing. So one of the things I hope that you might take away from today is the last thing you should do is take drugs. Now, don't stop your drugs. I am not suggesting, again, disclaimer, I am not suggesting stop whatever you're on, but I am suggesting let's find ways that we naturally work with our bodies to avoid the need of taking antidepressants, anti-anxiety pills, because all of this is hormonal imbalances. And mental health has become a sexy topic, and it's not just enough to talk about it. We need to actually be able to say, what strategies can I put together to deal with my mental health? In my case, the bereavement threw me off the scale. My depression was horrific. I didn't need antidepressants. I just needed an amino acid, which my gynecologist measured. It's called serotonin. And I needed L-tryptophan. She gave me the supplements. And from one day to the next, I felt like a new woman. And I'm not medicated. So thank you for highlighting that. And I'm sorry I have to share my bugbear. But one of the things we have to do is to be proactive, because our doctors globally are very happy to give us medicine when we may not need it.
Yeah, actually, it's true. It's true. I've been pushed towards, and me, I'm a strong cookie. So I was pushing all the tablets, antidepressants. I said, no, for sure, I'm sad because, I had an accident, but I don't want that. And my gynecologist just want me to give me drugs, but I don't want to take any hormones because I already had some past. So I'm against, and I would love to. Thing is, our society is really pushing drugs, but at the same time, I believe into plants and everything natural.
Yeah.
And I believe also if we have actually a menopause, it's because we are meant to have it. So we have to find a way to cope with it. But it's true, it's not nice when suddenly you're like blushing and sweating and you wake up because you're sweating, etc., and all the different symptoms. But it's true, there is an imbalance between actually, the topics being pushed because it's trendy, and that's why I like it in the organization, but at the same time, how actually really powerful is it, and how much are they doing towards making that happen? And the society, which is pushing drugs, and us wanted to go back towards natural and maybe a more natural life, going back to basics, I think, at same time, yeah.
Yeah, and so maybe naturally rebalancing your hormones naturally might work for you. It's very difficult to do. I know that in my case, because I'm so estrogen dominant, it was hardly impossible. But so that's why my option was HRT. Whatever works for you, but at least, and I think that's what comes back from your story, Cecile, at least you're trying different things. You've got to see try and what works for you. And what doesn't work, you can move on to something else. That's the moral of the story. It isn't go straight to drugs unless it's an extreme case, which again, I understand there's outliers, there's people who really, really are, if you're bipolar, for example, I would never say don't take your drugs. I would never, because those are extreme cases. But what I would say is what we eat, and that's why they say food is medicine as is movement is medicine. What we eat and what we do is just as important as what medicine we take. And that's not even including attitude, because our attitude has also got to be positive. They have seen, and there's a great book called The Source, And it's I've just consumed it from top to bottom, as it were. And the neuroscientist who wrote the book talks about how the brain is the source of a lot of our ailments, but also not ailments, but the ability to overcome challenges stems from our brain, from a neuroscientist perspective. And so positive mental attitude helps us also with a reduction of cortisol and increasing oxytocin and stuff like that. So thank you for sharing, Cecile. Excellent, my dear. All righty. Well, I'll wrap up then. Thank you so much, lovely ladies. I will be sharing this recording as well. Please, please, please feel free to pass it on to every woman you know and within your organizations, and let's have more conversations around this. And, you know, I'm obviously here to support you. I'm obviously here to support your organizations. And if you want to be part of the Midlife Reboot Tribe on-demand activities, also let me know. So have a lovely World Menopause Day. Reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease. And thank you so much.